I'll welcome everyone. Why don't we, it's a pretty small group today. Why don't we just kind of quickly go through and introduce ourselves and what organization we're from. I'll start. I'm Kayala Monaco, Director of Workforce Innovation for the UH Community Colleges. Josh.
Hi everyone, Josh. I'm with the community colleges with Kiala. I'll stay with our team. I'll pass it to Colette.
Hey everyone, Nicolette Vanderlee, Program Manager at the UHCCs with Josh and Kayla. I will pass it to Dan.
Thanks, Nicolette. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Durger, the Director of the Pacific Center for Advanced Technology Training located at Honolulu Community College. And I will pass it to my friend, Wenel.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, Wenel Kaneshiro, Workforce Development Director, Department of Education. Thomas?
Aloha kako, Thomas Chalk with the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. I run the Creative Industry Sector Partnership. Oh man, I can't see everyone. Can it be anyone? Because I see Carrie on my screen. So sorry, Carrie. I think you're on mute.
Okay, I try to get it off mute. Carrie Miyashiro, Vice Chair, Workforce Development Council Chair for the Sector Strategies and Career Pathway. And I'll pass it to, I guess, Angela.
Our outstanding intern.
Yes, I'm an intern for the Workforce Development Council team. So Evan and Kelly and Bennett.
And I'm Evan Palmer. I'm staff with the WDC. Thank you.
I'm Kali Opalaoho with Hawaiian Electric. And I guess there's Thomas is last, or Adele.
Adele, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Adele from the Workforce Development Division here on the island of Kauai. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming today. We just have a couple things to get through today. And we're gonna try to well, let's see how fast we can get through these. But I'm gonna leave it to my two co-chairs, Wanel and Josh, to kind of walk us through what we're going to be doing for this meeting. We're going to review basically what we talked about at our last meeting a couple months ago. And then we're going to do the work that we must get done today, which is come up with one or two actionable strategies that we can report on at the July Synergy Summit. So let's go, Wanel. You want to do a review?
Sure.
And then can I comment more than just what we report on July 9th? So like what we want to focus on for the next 12 months. So you guys had a lot of things you could have done this morning, and you're here, and we have a small group, but you chose the right meeting to come to, because this small group is going to choose on behalf of everybody what are like the one or two things around education and training that we're going to recommend to WDC that, you know, let's just focus on this. Let's see how far we can do on these one or two projects. And that's what we need your feedback on today.
Right. Thanks, Josh. And I know Kayla briefly went over our agenda, so I'm going to just skip that. So just as a reminder for today's meeting, the purpose is to advance our workforce development plan by identifying priorities and actions for our Pillar 2. And again, we're looking to prepare for our July 9th Synergy Summit. Sorry, I'm going to skip through because I know these look familiar to you. There are four plan objectives aligned with economic growth, education, and training alliances, removing barriers to workforce success and workforce synergy. So for today, we're going to be focusing on education and training alliances with the goal of building stronger bridges with Hawaii educators and training providers. Since a strong education and training ecosystem will yield lifelong learners and foster innovation in a fast-changing world. So really what we're looking at is being able to bring education and industry together to, I guess, establish processes to better prepare our students for the workforce. If you attended our March 13th meeting, we talked about our objectives, aligning workforce training and industry needs, enhancing collaboration between educational institutions and employers, expanding access to upskilling and reskilling opportunities, improving career pathways and apprenticeship programs, leveraging funding and resources for training programs, increase awareness and participation in training programs, and enhance data sharing and performance tracking. So these are some of the objectives that were identified for Pillar 2. During that meeting, if you remember, we were asked to rank them according to priority. And the group, or I guess our group, said that aligning our workforce training with industry was our #1 priority, and enhancing collaboration between educational institutions and employers, and also improving career pathways and apprenticeship programs. And I think these are things that are in the center of the work that we are doing, we being us Department of Education and Kala and Josh at the community colleges. So we're not surprised that these are priorities for us. We also talked about potential strategies on how to address these priorities, right? So some of the things that came up during that meeting: expand learn and earn pathways, strengthen sector partnerships and cross-agency collaboration, advance data integration and access, promote internship opportunities across sectors, and identify and prioritize low-hanging fruit action. So what are the things that we can do immediately? That's going to be easy to do for us to prepare our kids for workforce, and then thinking about what are some of the initiatives that may take a little bit longer time to plan for, but that's going to yield better student outcomes or better workforce outcomes in the end. And then for our challenges, some of the challenges that we identified during that meeting was our data system gaps and sustainability. How do we make sure that we are looking at the correct metrics and collecting the correct data? And we know that's been a challenge because it's not so easy tracking students from education to workforce, right? We don't currently have a mechanism to do that. So I think that's why this is listed as one of the challenges. Also, labor market data access, funding uncertainty, especially in this day and time, and equity and workforce resiliency. So making sure that we're providing opportunities for all students across the board and all workers across the board, and making sure that we address gaps in all sectors. Okay.
I added this link to the chat, and we wanted to spend the bulk of our meeting as kind of like a working meeting. And if folks are comfortable with Google Docs, maybe just see if you can hit that link in the chat. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to pull from those here, and put in, because you guys made time to be here, put in from your organization what are some key things that you want to try to do, or you need education to do, or from UH we want to get from businesses. And if we can come to some agreement on, if there's 1 or 2 things that we want to collectively focus our efforts on, that's kind of like our step 1. That's one of our tasks. So yeah, so right here. But any questions about this first activity that we're going to jump into? Somebody asked me earlier today, like, okay, for UH, Josh, what is the 1 to 2 action strategies that you're interested in? It kind of like took me a little while. I mean, not to influence your answer, but like for UH is learn and earn. And that model might be different at different places. But if I had to like have an action that's an example of an action strategy that we can't do by ourselves. We need employers. Another one, like kind of a more concrete one, is we need advisory help on like making sure the curriculum that we do is correct, like we're teaching the right stuff. But that's me because I'm coming from UH. And so if I could ask everybody to think of like if everyone that we have here could put 2 or 3 things down there, but just take a moment and just kind of jot down directly on the thing, jot down top 3 action strategies here. And so we're gonna let's take 3 to 5 minutes on our own. Think of things that like you'd like that if you had a magic wand and you could encourage employers and government partners and others uh, to just try to jot it down there. This is just a brainstorm, so it doesn't have to be like really well crafted. Let's just put a whole bunch of stuff down and then we'll go through and see what people are thinking.
What do I click on to start typing?
I think if you just click on the doc.
I try, but
Or here, let me put it in the chat again. Let's see. Copy link.
also I have to go on the chat. Okay, hold on. Let me try that.
And then also, if you're not able to hit the doc, you could, if you guys are can get to the chat, you can just add your things there, and we'll just copy and paste it for you, put it in.
You currently signed in as.
Are we looking up strategies for any particular
Oh,
priority
no, how do
that
you
was
do that?
reviewed, or is it all?
Wait now.
It can be for any and all, but I love the question because if you like scroll down to like our notes, so like we did talk about this, we didn't finish, but at our March meeting, and these priority strategies and tactics, these are some of the things that March group identified. So let me kind of remind us. I'm going to reload it in this area here. And what am I going to say? This is from March. And it could be as general or specific as you want, because then if we find like some areas that we're all thinking the same, then I'm going to push us to get more like detailed on what exactly are we talking about here.
Hey, Josh, if we like what somebody else has written, how do we like put a plus mark next to it? Or like, I just don't want to write the same thing, but I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I agree with that one. How should I mark that?
Yeah, if you already see something that you like, just like maybe put parentheses next to it and just say +1, or I don't know.
Okay.
And then Carrie, if you could also think about like, I think some of the work of the subsec of our subcommittee on WDC, the sector strategies, like I'm sure they have goals over the next 12 months that that subsector or that subcommittee focuses on. Like I think that might dovetail with this group as well. And if you came in late, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And what we're doing is we're just we're brainstorming on actionable strategies that we as a pillar or group, like we want to kind of identify 1 to 2 that we can focus on. But for now, it's like if there's something from your organization or you're personally interested in, let's throw it on here. Okay, continue adding as it comes through, but let's try to um, let's see what we got.
Okay, wait.
Okay, do people want to just speak to what they wrote or ask questions about things that they see? What's the best way for us to synthesize all these good ideas?
I feel like we have some common threads coming through here, and it'd be nice to you could combine the common ones. I feel like internships and educational opportunities, you could kind of bring them together in alignment.
Yeah, I agree with Evan. Like
All
internships,
right.
apprenticeships, job opportunities, on the job training. I mean, they're different, of course, but they all fall under that same bucket.
Okay. Internships and on-the-job training.
Yeah, I feel like internships, apprenticeships, on-the-job training, like they are all different, but they do fall under that same bucket. Maybe the bucket's on-the-job training, and it's you get that via internships and apprenticeships. But I think also just job opportunities in general. Maybe it's right to a job too, that it's not an internship or an apprenticeship. It's a full-time job. That's why I like the comment about the pathways piece, because I think traditionally we've thought of pathways as academic pathways. I have to take this set of courses to get this kind of a job, which of course is true, but there's so many other ways to get places, and there's so many on-ramps and off-ramps. And I think we maybe do a disservice to students when we only show them those kinds of opportunities, but we don't also include this is what they cost, and this is how long they take, and these are the benefits of doing one over the other, like a more holistic approach to pathways than just kind of defaulting to academic pathways.
Mm.
So I don't know if you guys see what I did. So what I did was I just copied and pasted the whole thing into ChatGPT, just that list that we came up with, and then just below that on the doc, I copied and pasted it in. Do with it what you want. But it ChatGPT kind of organized it by like general kind of sections, if you will, similarities, those kind of things. So take it or leave
Thank
it.
you for that.
I'm not married to it by any stretch, but I thought it would be a quick and easy way to kind of organize it.
Thank you for that. You just saved us half an hour and a headache.
I had I was just thinking, like, I hadn't heard much people talk about this, but like, in my experience in my other career, we had like a cohort, small cohorts of industry professionals. But I was just thinking about, like, if you had mentors that would mentor groups of like 5 to 12 people at a time into high level positions. So this would be like somebody who kind of is an industry professional but disconnected from the rest of the group, that could possibly just, like, just be like an advisor and have just like a little group every once in a while. Just have some requirements for participation, but this would be more for like the higher level positions, not just for general career, but like when we're trying to fill in certain positions that really need a high industry knowledge. Maybe something like that could be a thing.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Are you saying we should add something to this?
I'm just looking maybe in the trainer development category.
Yes.
Let's see. Just like cohorts of high skill mentorship groups.
Okay. Why don't we just go through the synthesized list?
Sure.
Just give it a human look, especially if you want to make sure that your sentiment is captured there. And let's just start from the top. Okay, trainer development, industry education alignment. I think this reminds me of things that one now that you guys are doing about, if you can train the teachers, then the teachers can be the best advocates for getting folks interested in different sectors and actually, from the experts.
Yeah,
Similar with UH faculty. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we have been trying to do more of, is providing our educators, our classroom teachers, our school counselors, even our school administrators, with opportunities to experience like actual workplaces, right, in industry, so that they can get a better understanding of the types of skills and knowledge that the kids are going to need in order to be successful in the workforce, right? So we've been asking some of our industry partners to maybe dedicate a week to provide different activities for teachers to engage in, or educators to engage in, to learn a little bit more about the company, right? I think through that experience, our educators are now gaining a better understanding of that industry and what it takes, and seeing all the different types of careers that are available. Because our teachers are not from industry, right? Most of them are educators. So what they know about all the other industries is what they learn from friends or family, or what they see, I don't know, on the internet, right? And we want them to understand that hospitality is not just front desk and housekeeping, right? That airline industry, aviation is not just flight attendants and pilots, right? So now we give them a week with Hawaiian Airlines. They get to see all the different careers, and they also get to see that there's marketing, there's business, there's human resources, that there's a place for students who are interested in maybe different industry sectors within that company and industry. So the more opportunities that we can provide our teachers to get into the workplace, the better we can guide our students and provide the education that they need in order to build the skills needed to be successful in the workforce. Sorry, that was like a long-winded explanation.
No, thank you for that. I think how the process is emerging, and then you guys just, steer us if, so we have, I think as long as we know what these big headings are, and then maybe we can go back and I want folks to understand what the different themes are, such that if we had to prioritize and say, let's just focus on 2 of these themes, you know what, how to vote, or how to like why these things are distinctive, and what we mean when we say work-based learning and employer participation. Okay, so let's go to the second one. Internships. This was Josh's number 1, but if folks see things that they put here, could they speak to it? What they think this theme is about? Maybe Nicolette or Evan or others.
Sure, Josh. What I was thinking about here was, we have these sector partnerships that have had a number of years now to get up to speed and form. And I think it could be interesting to kind of look for opportunities to engage more employers that are like active champions in these sector partnerships. So I know one of the strategic priorities for UH going forward, most likely in the workforce sector, is going to be this concept of stackable credentials and also micro credentials. So I think having the employers engaged and leveraging our sector partnerships I think this goes back to like reviewing curriculum and make sure that we're like teaching the right thing, like what's relevant now, what do the employers need, validating the training programs. And that from that, we could have some type of like employer endorsement through the sector partnerships of the micro credentials. I think there's some work that we could do there, engaging our employers in that kind of curriculum review and credential stackability. And let's see what else is on there. And, maybe part of that kind of goes back to another point I had made. I think that AI grouped it in another section where, I think the sectors do all this great work separately. So in a way, like now we're in the silos of sectors. But when we recently had that cross-sector partnership meeting on Oahu, it was really great to see the sectors actually mix. And I think there's an opportunity for like cross-sector work with the employers so that we can bring like the learnings and the effectiveness from specific sectors and bring that together across sectors on specific projects or things. So I think there's just a lot of exciting like next steps to take the sector partnerships in a more multidisciplinary direction, engaging employers in some priority projects.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Nicolette. That's such a great point, because every single one of the current sector partnerships have listed their number 1 thing as getting a career awareness, getting the word out about what careers are in their sector. And it's always been an odd one to me, because I feel like, oh, you're all competing against each other. It's not like if we just tell more people about our industry, more people are going to come to us, but everybody's doing that. So I feel like if they all came together and really strategized what's the best way to do this, that we support one another as opposed to compete against each other for talent, that it would be so much more fruitful in the long run. And that's just one example. I feel like there's many, many other examples where you look at what each one of the separately, what each one of the sector partnerships has identified as a high need, how similar they are across all of the sectors, that it does seem like it's time to start bringing everybody together more so we can leverage uh, all of that combined effort and not just have everybody spinning their wheels in their own sector and hoping, oh, I hope everybody, really likes, they want to be an engineer, and I really hope everybody wants to be a doctor now, or everybody wants to be an IT specialist now. I feel like it is time to bring that together. I don't know that it's necessarily this pillar is responsibility to do that, but I feel like it is the responsibility of everybody to see that happen.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. Can Kelly or Paul, are you from industry? Can you guys respond to that? Like, how does that work? Like, if we have a sector partnership and everyone's working together to say these are the needs, it what is that? Is there competition? Is there a desire to maybe not work together?
Honestly, I feel like there's enough fish out there for all of us to get ours. Like, for example, like, just working with now we know there's a 60% clip of folks that are going straight up from high school to whatever that may be, not going to college, right? I mean, that's a big opportunity as well as a big concern, right? So if we all kind of collaborate on training programs, and one of the things that I do want to call that's kind of related to this is we talk about training teachers on what the curriculum should look like to match what industry needs, but if you look at from and this is very anecdotal, I don't really know the true sort of dynamics, but I don't think every industry, every company really knows how to run a successful internship or a training program, right? At this level, we need to teach them how to fish too. And there's change management there that's getting under, out of their comfort zone. If we focus on those pieces too, I think we can create more comfort and then expand it to, a lot more industries, right? We got a lot of industries here. Some are doing it better than others. HBH, they already have a down pack medical assistance program. How can we mirror that to other areas? And for me, from a competition standpoint, I really have no qualms about that. Even in banking, yes, we're competitors, but we feed off of each other. We share gain points, pain points. There's the CPB, for example, they've been experimenting with high school internship with mixed results, and they've been very open to sharing lessons learned there. So I think it's a Hawaii thing, honestly. Like we're just not cutthroat here, right? And I definitely appreciate that. That's I think what makes us unique as a community, which makes what we're doing now very exciting because I feel like we're going to collaborate well here.
I think Paul brought up a good point about companies maybe not knowing how to run an internship or an externship. And that's something that I think Josh and Cal and I spoke briefly about right before this. And maybe that's something that we should consider as a project, is building maybe like courses, like mini courses on how to do internships and externships and what that looks like from the educator side and what that looks like from the business side, and how to work collaboratively together in order to make that happen, right? Because
Maybe like creating a whole onboarding experience
right.
for new companies that want to have like a high school internship, for example.
Because I think even on the education side, I think we have a lot to learn from you guys, Paul, right? On how to work collaboratively with you on what you need from us, and then your processes and procedures, right? So that we can better prepare kids on our end too, right? And our teachers on our end. I think we can learn from each other so that the experience is more fruitful, right?
Yeah, and one thing, just full transparency, we've been kicking around the idea of high school internships, and we're in the boat of, this is uncharted territory for us. So there's some hesitation, but also I think the hope is, with high school, like do you all remember Susan Page modeling, where you learn etiquette and how to walk and talk? You almost need like a Susan Page modeling for how to work, for high schools. 'Cause high school training is not just about the job and the technical things, but it's how to communicate, how to call out sick. I mean, all that general things, and sort of at least talking to our trainers, they're good with training the technical side, but if we partner with like a LCC to provide kind of the general trainings and whatnot, that can be a very, I think, fruitful partnership. And there's already pockets of that going on. I know like the Youth Hawaii, which is a GED readiness program, they've partnered up with some organizations that includes training through LCC. So mimicking that for other industries and other companies, that's just one example. But that's what I think would make it easier, because especially here, I mean, we're big on small business, right? They may not have all the training resources to really have a full, but if you partner up with other other organizations that can help on the training side, or at least parts of the training, I think that makes for a good partnership. That's why we're here, right?
And I think on our end, I think especially for DOE, right, we have to be able to convince the rest of you that the high school kids are not scary to work with. And so if there was some type of onboarding, like Paul mentioned, that might decrease the apprehension, right? I would think.
Here, let me add something on the job training. So on the job training, it's for private entities, private sectors. So the requirement for us to provide funding, employers must be in good standing. So not all employers know that the criteria is to automatically know how to be registered in the HCE, which is Hawaii Compliant Express, which they need to be in good standing. The four under Hawaii Compliant Express is Hawaii taxation. They're registered with unemployment insurance. They have a good standing with IRS and registered with the unemployment insurance. So unemployment insurance, IRS, white taxation, and what was that? And DCCA, yeah, doing business in Hawaii. So that has to be cleared first before we can, assess an individual, a student graduated from high school or an adult, before we can provide them that individual to that company or employer. So for us, yeah, we have to outreach to employers, and that's been difficult too. So educating the employer before they can accept the OJT candidate to even begin. So yeah, so it does take a while when they don't know about HCE. There's a fee, and it takes maybe a week or 2 weeks or even longer to be accepted or be qualified to do an OJT. Yeah.
Just for clarifying, that's only if we're looking at a publicly funded OJT.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I think, I mean, there's definitely a place for that, because I mean, that's another thing, right? I mean, not all companies have the financial backing to really support something like this. At the same time, I know, especially with the question mark with federal funding, there are a lot of companies that are, I think, willing, from a financial basis to support such programs. That's just, to the earlier point, we may have to teach them how to fish first. The buy-in may be there, but the apprehension is, how do we even navigate through through building this out?
Okay, thank you, Paul and Adele, for your input. Okay, we need to keep moving. This group needs to look at what we've done here in the past 20 minutes. We need to pick 1 to 2 things that we want to work on. And what would that look like? So can we, how should we do this? You guys want to kind of vote on what you think is a good thing to work on? And then after we pick what we want to work on, we're going to have to come up with some metrics for how we're going to measure our success in this. Why don't we just kind of throw it out there? If anyone wants to comment. I already know what I would vote for, but I'm going to let other people talk first.
Can I float an idea out here? If Winnell's comfortable with this? I think we have an opportunity to use legislatively funded internships in the next year. Is that right, Winnell? Next 2 years?
Yeah, we receive funding for student internships, paid student internships in public and private sector for 2 years.
That could be high school students, that could be UH students, right?
That's questionable. I need to go find out. I mean, so the Department of Education received funding. With the understanding that DLIR also received funding, but I'm not sure if it sounds like DLIR may not have received funding, so we're trying to work that out. Regardless, we do have funding for high school internships. The question is whether or not we have funding for college internships in private sector. We do have funding for college internships in public sector, if that makes sense. But this will allow us to potentially pilot some programs with private sector to build out the learn and earn models and the student internship models. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to start thinking about how we want to partner to make these things happen, because the resources are currently there.
So I bring that up because I think that's a practical and like general, like creating a model for how do we do this right? I mean, we got a big piece of the puzzle solved in that we have somebody who's going to pay for it. And we want to I don't know who's responsible, DLIR, DOE, UH, but I think the state of Hawaii, we want to show that this is a good use of taxpayer funds, that we have folks working in both public and private internships that they're well prepped, both on the host and the company side and on the intern side, that they know they're adequately prepared to have success. I think this could be a kind of like a test, like a project. That's one example.
It'll be a good way to develop a proof of concept that we can then take back and say, see, now we need more money.
And scale wise, how many interns would that be about?
It depends on the hours and pay. So so we receive $1.8 million each year for 2 years for this. And pay would be at least $20 an hour for students, for the student interns. Wait, let me take that back. We will reimburse up to $20 an hour. But I believe the student interns have to be paid minimum of $20 an hour. That makes sense.
Well, no, is that requiring employer contribution as well? Or is that, I mean, an employer basically gets what amounts to free labor?
So and we're still working out the rules for this. For private industry, I believe we are reimbursing half.
So the employer
So there
is
is, the employer
required.
would still be required.
That's
But
awesome.
I also think that there is funding available, and I gotta read through this, to support the mentor from the company. So like say Paul, like First Hawaiian Bank, let's say First Hawaiian Bank decides to take on a student intern, and we'll pay the intern $20 an hour. I think we can reimburse half of that. But we can also provide supplemental funds for the mentor. So like if Paul mentors the student, I believe we can provide some funding for Paul. But we're working out the details on that.
Oh yeah, that's I think that's as you were talking, it made me think of the American Job Center model. I don't know if Evan you know the folks in the Workforce Development Council can speak to that a little bit more, but I know like when I've talked to Mark Menard over at American Job Center, like some of the programs they have are actually pretty freaking amazing. Like the internship funding that is available, and then the on the job training like is like what they have available beyond that. I don't know, maybe Nicolette, you know that better than I do as well, but like I think that model is like if the employer qualifies and the employer is willing to kind of play the game that the WIOA funds requires them to play, whatever, you know, if they're willing to kind of work with that type of talent, let's say, or job seeker, like there's a lot of potential synergies that are available for that. So I mean, whether it's the model or even like tapping into some of the already existing funding and programs that are already there, I think there's opportunities there. And I mean, I don't know, I don't mean to like toot my own horn, but I think that's why I put in the list like something along the lines of like mapping out the funding availability, because there is funding out there besides the money that you're talking about, Linnell. But I think like it would be cool if we could have a map of not just what trainings are available, what trainings are needed, but also like what funding could support some of these things, whether it's for the student, whether it's for the teacher, or those kind of things, whether it's to get training or whether it's for work-based learning, like internships and apprenticeships. Like anyway, yeah, just sorry, just throwing ideas out there.
To talk on that one is that I feel like from like Workforce Development Council, I see that there are so many like ways that we network and work with different groups, and I see some groups have some crossover. Some groups could be like beneficial to another. And I think that's a great idea, Thomas, to kind of like to be able to get people out of their silos, you know, and to share what is available. And that's a lot what we do in these pillar meetings and committee meetings. But it's, I think, having a formalized map of funding sources and you know, like there's not just where the funds come from, but also who's willing to play ball. You know, I know some people may not give funds, but they might have like Bank of Hawaii might participate in an activity or training event. That's great to see some resources put down on paper.
If I could add something in, I think what we need to do is look at the intent of the internships, because when it was started a couple of years ago, the intent was to get people into employment with the state. And DOE had some positions, and one of the things that came back was DOE's people, if they're a junior, or they may not want to go and they're not looking for a job. The internships were created to have these people go in, say you're in a clerk for 6 months, you actually transition into the position. And so what happened is they opened it up so the businesses can work with the Department of Education. So when you say all, that didn't apply to the university system because these people are employable. So I think it's like, okay, where did the money come from? What is the intent? Because when Senator De La Cruz did it, the intent was to find workers. With the layoff the federal workers, now they're getting another source of people. So would that be a continuous, or would they evolve? So I think it's evolved after a couple of years, but the whole intent was to find people for work in the state. So I think, if I'm not wrong, I don't think the city was participating in the initial internship.
Okay, for the purposes of what we need to get done today, I think it's clear that this talk about work-based learning or experiential educational experiences is something that we're all interested in. How do we want to move this forward? Do we need to have a roundtable of industry people and education people and funding people to talk about what the needs are, what our issues are, how do we work on this together, or what do we want to do with this topic moving forward?
Well, I know Hawaii P20 is doing that Pathways project that they have. I'm wondering if this is somehow part of that, like it's an expansion of the work that they've already done. There's at least a base to work off of. So maybe, Kala, to your point, we bring that piece to a roundtable and be like, we want to add these other components to this. What does that look like, or what could it look like? I mean, I know we always run the risk of it being too much information and then nobody can use the tool because there's too many things going on at the same time. But I feel like as it exists now, it's just a really small sliver of what people are looking for. And it's excluding all of these other types of opportunities that we're talking about right now that actually have a direct and maybe even a faster impact on industry needs. So maybe that's the answer, is to try to build off of what P20 is doing and expand it that way. Just a thought, since I know it exists and I know they keep adding to it, like they keep adding industry sectors to the work they're doing. So maybe that's one way to capitalize on the work that's already being done by P20.
Thanks. Yeah, we do need to have a baseline of what we do. I personally, on my side, I really want to know what industry, what you guys think, like who does internships well? How does that work? And how can we get more companies in Hawaii or state agencies to want to do this more? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think one internship model or organization that's done internships extremely well and has different models to look at is MEDB and their STEMworks program. It's a premier program across the state. One of the hallmarks of that, though, is it does take a lot of time to really align that participant with the appropriate employer, so they're going to be the most successful. Also, STEMworks is limited to industry as well too. It's limited a lot of times to tech and to high tech. How do we expand that model out? Katie Talladay is a key player in that, so it could be further conversations with Katie on what we could do to maybe build off this model, how it could apply to the broader state.
Yeah, Marshall, Thomas and I were in a meeting with Katie yesterday, and she made the announcement there. If you wanted to work with them, she has 150 people she's trying to place currently. So if people on this call call Katie Talladay, because she's just wants to move it. But you're right, Marshall. They do it really well. And we worked with them on good jobs, and so we kind of know from the inside how it works, and it's impressive, but it does require resources.
So internships, learn and earn, is that a one big bucket for our group?
And I would add apprenticeships.
Yep.
I think we can bucket all that under work-based learning, right?
Okay, so if we had to go in front of the entire unified plan group and say, this is what we want to focus on, or this is our key priority in the next 12 months. What are our metrics? What are we doing and what are our metrics?
Answer to what's the problem we're trying to solve? And then I'll know the metrics.
Is the strategy to increase the number of work-based learning opportunities for high school students and college students?
That's it. From industry, that doesn't help me. I want to have eventually an employee that's going to be an employee. So an internship's a great training, a great test run to see if they're going to work out. Apprenticeships are more specific, right? Because now I'm training you to do work for me, and that works for like linemen and people that we put above the ground and under the ground, and that's great. But internships we get to choose after. So if them landing in a job is going to be the goal, I don't know if internships get there, but they do get training and they do get learning and they do earn while they're doing it. So I think Kayla asked me that question earlier, and I was like, I don't know if that works, and I do think it's competitive among industry. Like somebody said engineering, and I'm like, yeah, I want the top 20 engineers. You can have number 21. That's how I would consider, oh yeah, we were working well together. And for my industry, Binet gave the presentation that utilities was going to get smaller in terms of available jobs. So I think we're going to be even more competitive in the future, opposed to other industries in Hawaii that are growing, expanding. So I'm just trying to figure out like the problem, and then I'll know like what those other questions you asked, Kiala. So that's my sidebar. Sorry for taking the time.
So kind of related, but just something thinking out loud. You may also have to look at job redesign, because not every industry right now, this is Angela, I could be totally off base, but I don't know if every industry has sort of these entry-level jobs for somebody straight out of high school with job readiness program. It might be rethinking what the work looks like, right? And then of course we got this whole AI thing coming in that's really going to shake up what work even looks like. Yeah, and that's here and now, and I'm sure it's going to exponentially change in the next 5 years. So just something to think about. Yeah, that's a whole another problem to deal with.
Thank you, both of you guys, for the input, because this is an issue. We have 80% of the people on this call are educators, and we think this is what our students need, or this is what our students want, but it is very helpful for you guys to say these things from the industry side. Maybe internships are not the way to go. Maybe, I mean, we need more of your input in how we design these things going forward.
I mean, I think it can be, but I mean, to Khalid's point, there is the what's in it for us from our organizations. Like we're all here because I think we have altruistic intentions and community give back. By the end of the day, we're looking for candidates too. So that's our ulterior motive. And how can we build this so that, once they're done with internship and other job readiness, hey, they're ready for that job. But that job's got to exist, right? So that's something we'll have to figure out industry by industry.
Well, and I think for us, at least DOE, right? We are looking to prepare our kids to be able to work here in Hawaii and make a viable living, right? So the internships for us is to provide our kids with opportunities to see what types of careers are available for them that's going to be able to lead to a viable living, but also to introduce them to you guys, right? As potential employers. That for us, right? We want our kids, like Superintendent Hayashi keeps saying, right? We want our kids to be globally competitive, locally committed. We want them to be highly skilled, but we want them to work here at home. right? So for us, our partnerships with all of you in industry is important because we want to make sure that our kids have a landing spot.
Excuse me, how long would you like an internship to be? Because most of our government funds is 6 months long. And most of the state of Hawaii agencies, the requirement is 1 year. So I'm enrolling in our program. We have Hele Mua, which is a 289-day period, 6 months experience, and it ends. So then the intention is to keep them in a permanent job. So after that internship is that agency, which we're trying to assist with the agency to keep them on with their 89-day period to so that they can reach that 1 year experience and then they get placed in that job. So we're dealing with that.
I don't know if that's more common where, at least a lot of companies I've, talked to, primarily summer internships. So that's, maximum 3 months. Some companies do have ongoing throughout the regular semesters, but I mean, from a full-time perspective, right, summer is always the easiest.
Okay.
Let me add something in, and I work with Paul, and we had an internship at White Powell, and when I was there, which was the Academy of Finance, and what we did is, initially they were part of the National Academy Foundation, which would require 240 hours of paid internships. So the credit union would pay for the internships we had, and they ran through the program. A number of these students actually was hired out of high school, and I would say a lot of them ended up with their college degrees paid for by the credit union. So what we did is we would pay, if they went into accounting, we would pay for their accounting classes. We would end up paying about 80% of their college degree, as well as their internship. So as far as we're looking at state grants, the credit union financed the whole thing. So the business would finance that. They would go through that. A lot of them ended up as business managers. They left. They went through the system. I think the program is 30 years old now. So, there was a number of people that went through the program, but we would fund our own. We're no longer with National Academy Foundation, but they had a 240-hour requirement to be a completer. So that's a thought. That's one way they can do it. The credit union ended up paying for all of that. We had the interns. We would take juniors who would be managers of the student-operated credit union. And when they become seniors, we would, at that point, the ones that didn't go to college, the ones that we wanted, we would hire them and would give them opportunities. During the internships, we would give students, because that's a 6-week period, they could choose 3 different categories they were wanting to learn. And I remember being involved in one, and she wanted to do marketing, and she wanted to do accounting, and she wanted to do IT. So for 2 weeks, she went to every section, and she got to work with them. In fact, we even brought them to DOE, and we worked with the budget director, and she showed them how DOE, which is a federally or state-funded entity, actually gets funded. What does that financial statement looks like? She worked with the credit union and see how the business statement looks like. And so they got to see what areas they wanted to go into. So it's more of a career exploration rather than preparing them for a specific job. But that's one example of what we were doing.
Okay, we need to come up with a strategic priority. Then we kind of all agree that this work-based learning and employer participation is the way we want to go. Does anyone have any objection to that? Okay, so
just some thoughts, just a quick thought on that, and I'll leave it up. But I think this is probably a multi-year type of thing, right? So I think for first year objectives, we want to be realistic. Like, we can't save the world, but maybe we pilot whatever we decide with some targeted schools. And I definitely trust in Winnell to figure out which schools we might want to pilot it with. It could be the ones that have resource rich, and we're there to kind of supplement to like see what that utopia would look like. Or it could be the underserved populations or schools that we want to hit. There's different ways to kind of angle it, but Yeah, I feel like we need to kind of incrementally, build that out before like really deploying across. Because that's, I mean, DOE is definitely a monster of an organization to, if we're looking at that as a target population, it is a monster of an organization to navigate through, and doing enterprise-wide things, can be, challenging.
I'd like to go back to Kali'i's question about what the problem we're solving for is. I think it was a very insightful question. And I mean, I know we've talked about a couple of things that might kind of be the problem. I think one is like just is there enough trained or ready talent to fill the jobs? And maybe whether the jobs are going to be there in 3 or
Yeah.
5 years or not is maybe that's a different part of the equation. But for this specific group, like, is the problem that we don't have enough people, or is it more about the I guess the coordination of all of these things? Because all of these things, like, it seems like there is a lot of work in the space of like earn and learn and work-based learning, and we're kind of fixing the data tracking kind of thing. But it I guess that would be my other possible problem that we're solving for, which is that coordinated pathway thing where it's very clear to both employers and educators and even the job seeker or the learner what they need to do to get from where they are to being hired to work in that job, in that good job, right? So I don't know, like, I think Kili's point was really good, because I think that will end up dictating some of the things that we're trying to decide as a group.
Okay, so if we had to present something, would it be something like explore and further discuss work-based learning opportunities, with industry, between industry and education? And then the questions under that would be, are internships the answer? Are apprenticeships the answer? What are the different types of things industry wants? What do we offer, and how do we meet the needs of both industry and our kids who need experience? Would that be the strategic priority, just to kind of look into this and figure out what would be the best path forward? And one of those things would be Wendell's pilot project on what she's doing. Maybe the UH could do some kind of pilot project.
I think going back to what Thomas and Kelly said about the problem, I always thought, and maybe I misunderstood. I always thought that the problem that we're trying to solve is that workforce shortage. Right. At least for me, at the Department of Education, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, that's what I'm trying to work towards. Like, how do I make sure that my kids, right, my 10,000 graduates a year, is going to be able to fill whatever workforce gaps there are in industry. And I think what might be a little bit challenging for us, and me, Kala, and Josh, is because we're on the education side, right? We're not from industry, so we don't necessarily know where the shortages are. I mean, we've seen the reports, but really for me, it's how can I make sure that I fill, your workforce gaps, Paul, and your workforce gaps, Kaylee and Thomas and Carrie, you know what I mean? Like, so that my kids can get a high wage job and make a living and stay here in Hawaii and buy a house and buy a car and raise a family. And for me to be able to prepare my kids for that, work-based learning is going to be key. And to me, the work-based learning opportunities that we provide should align with whatever industry needs are, so that we can fill those gaps.
So to that point, And as we kind of look at piloting, it's not just piloting with schools, but it could be piloting it with industries. Not every industry might have that job where you go through internship. It might not be there. So maybe if we do some kind of industry analysis of where are the gaps for sort of more entry level roles, because honestly, like the quantity, I saw somebody wrote in the chat, quantity and quality. The quantity I think is there. Like us personally, we get about 1,000 to 3,000 applications each month, but that dwindles down sometimes to single digits from that. So the quality is the issue. Somebody straight out of school, high school without these job readiness programs, it can be deer in the headlights. But you include this, that gets them more ready for these roles. So I think to that point, let's figure out which industries have the most need, and that's the priority. And that, I think you'll get better buy-in there as well. And the others, we may have to look at it differently. But that may be one approach to go to prioritize for the upcoming year. And then the other thing, you talk about, getting to that wage. One thing to be mindful of is, I know there's a lot of focus on getting to that living wage, but I think the pathway is not necessarily that first job is going to be living wage. That's just, I think, not realistic in today's business. But companies having a pathway to get to that living wage, I think that's a much more realistic expectation. That's something, we may have to kind of massage the mindset of businesses to make sure they do build career paths for that. So for us, for example, the teller role is the entry level role, pays about 18 to 20, but that can lead to different opportunities that can get them to that living wage and beyond that.
Yeah, no, I agree, Paul, with what you're saying. In some industries, it is a little bit easier to map it out. Like LPN or medical assistant to LPN to RN, like that's a
Exactly.
pretty easy one to map out and people can see it. Yeah, I make less money up front, but if I keep going, I'll make more money and more money. And then I'm at this really good living wage if I, keep upskilling myself to get there. IT's a little bit that way too, where help desk is an obvious place to start.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to do cyber, I'm not going to get this amazing $150,000 a year cyber job right out of the gate. That's not going to that's an extraordinary person if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the goal is what are those pathways in these places as opposed to, I mean, and in some jobs it is true. You need 10 years experience. That's just what it is. And you can't get that except by doing 10 years of experience. That's the one way to meet that MQ. But in other jobs, some of the MQs need to be revisited. And it's like, do you really need that much experience?
Exactly.
Yeah, so like that kind of work, I mean, and again, I don't know that that's the purview of this particular pillar, but that seems to be something that needs to happen.
Yeah, you remember like IT, for example, back in the day, the entry level, they got to go to the mainland to get their training. Everyone wants experience there. And now I think there's a better mindset, knowing the talent shortage. Hey, let's grow from within, right? Ourselves included, we have more straight out of college folks that are, starting in IT and building up their credentials. And fruitful, but it is a longer game than kind of the instant gratification with seasoned talent. But that's definitely much more of a win-win for what we're trying to do in the community.
I think in this other area that Thomas brought up about coordination or alignment, like maybe we have enough stuff, but it's not like nobody knows about it, or it's not as efficient as it should be. I know UH is trying to do this. We're trying to use technology to do this, like landscape analysis, more or less, of what's out there. If you want to do an apprenticeship or an internship, this is what you can do locally. And we're trying to like we're not far along on it, but it's definitely part of our strategic plan to use technology to communicate to students and prospective folks that this is not only a pathway to see where you want to go, but this is like opportunities or funding or things that you can do to get there. So I mean, our UH is on the hook. Like we want to strategically, we're trying to get better at that the next couple years anyway. This whole what's out there, how do we help communicate to people? This is what you should do. The next steps to get there.
I'm just curious to Kelly and Carrie and the kind like it the industry folks on the call do you feel like there's enough engagement? I mean, this meeting notwithstanding, like in terms of industry's ability to influence or to provide guidance or input on like that pathway, that curriculum, or the skills that are needed. Because that's another thing too, right? Is like I think from my perspective, I look at the team here, like including Wanell, Josh, like all the UH people, all the DOA people that I've worked with. I feel like they're doing their darndest to try to get industry input on these questions. I just am curious from the industry perspective, do you guys feel like either is there enough opportunity, or maybe it's not a question of opportunity, but is it efficient enough to be like a quick turnaround on kind of what you need? I don't know. It kind of goes along with what Josh was asking or talking about, right? That coordination piece.
Thomas, let me answer that. Pretty much, I think if you look at the businesses, trends move so quickly. By the time the university system moves in, that's what we did 2 years ago. We don't do that anymore. They may change directions a couple of times. For example, in Kelly's business, with Lahaina, the whole landscape changed. The way they do business changed. And it was not like, I think if UH was trying to copy and redo that, they'd still be working on it, but they're at somewhere else already. And so I don't think that the education, I think you can lay a foundation for it, but you cannot find them for a specific job because the job opportunities are moving so quickly.
Okay, guys, we have 9 minutes left. We're going to get shut down. So we are supposed to come up with an actionable strategy for the next 12 months. So maybe we need to narrow in. Do we want to make it something just about, establish a working group so we can continue the discussions that we've started today?
What if we went back to the sector partnerships and suggested having a cross-sector working group around this topic, so we kind of bring a diverse set of input and really focus in on this priority that's coming out of this group?
Great.
I like that. And but a wrinkle on that is like because I heard some sectors they don't actually need internships. They need to raise the they have the numbers. They just need to thicken the quality. And I think the sector partnerships by industry, they might have different needs, or definitely for different occupations. So if we as a group recommend like in this broad bucket of work-based learning, could include apprenticeship, internship, or other. If we just have by sector, like if we can convince each sector partnership to have like like an earn and learn kind of focus, and maybe this group just sets up like this is the like here's a generic model, or these are some key things that we think all like a quality experience should have, and then we just try to implement it by by the sector partnerships that we currently have, because they might not have for the problem they're trying to address, right, might be different by industry.
I agree with that, Josh. I mean, being the creative industries guy, who we always feel like the odd duck. Like we're definitely not like healthcare or IT pathways, right? But yeah, like totally. I think the effort to like what Nicolette suggested could be a really maybe not cross sector, but like at least the idea of encouraging each sector to this kind to have this kind of conversation. I think we could. I think speaking for the creative industry sector partnership, I think we could pull that together.
Yeah, I think that's good because at the end of the day, we need to understand the need of the industry, right? Does this type of program meet what their needs are? And if it doesn't, or it's also like do they need to change the mindset of what they need, you know, from a job design standpoint?
So we're trying to define and pilot earn and learn model by sector partnership.
I like that.
Define and what did you say, Josh?
Define and um,
Forgot to say, yeah, I know,
yeah,
I got the define part.
Model? I think you said
yeah,
model.
yes.
Define and model effective earn and learn initiatives.
So Josh, is it for experience or is
I-
it for them to actually get into the workforce?
Well, I know for the community colleges, we want them to get a job.
So they should be interning in the job that they're going to be working in versus just for experience.
These are things we would discuss in our priorities this year. Really, we have to go back to Kelly's thing. Like, our strategy this year is to figure out what is the question. The questions are different depending on who you are and where you sit. So that should be part of what we're encouraging this year is for people to figure out what is that question, and then how do we go from there.
Like for UH, best case, our programs are so good and clean that students come to us in the thousands or tens of thousands. They graduate and they're ready on day one. Right? So like I'm trying to design for the masses. I mean, if we can get good programs at each of our campuses that have the right things, because students will do a lot for credit. If they're in a program, they'll do whatever the faculty tells them. But the feedback has been that's not enough. They get the bachelor's, they get the associates, they show up at the workplace locally, and they're like they don't have the right skills, or they want to try them out first, or other things. That's where internships. Well, that's how I think of internships. But my plan A is that folks that graduate from UH are highly sought after and highly ready. The internships is just more of a boost. I guess in some cases it could be we don't have enough people going into it, so we're trying to like say do this training. You're gonna get a job right after. You can try out at this companies. You'll get paid while you do it. I mean that pay is a big incentive, right? So I mean a little bit of both. We're not putting all our eggs into one basket of internships. We're just saying we have needs. Different sectors have certain problems they're trying to address. We should develop some structure around earn and learn models, at least best practices.
Okay, so I think Wanell and Josh and I will try to come up with a strategic, actionable strategy statement on behalf of this group. We'll try to come up with some metrics. Maybe we can just share it out with this group by email later, and if anyone has any serious problems, we can talk about it. But yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of focused on what we're supposed to hand back to Bennett, so we're going to try to draft something up for that.
And just another thing, food for thought. I mean, I think we're dealing with two different populations here, right? We got the straight out of high school and those that go through college, which I think I mean, it's going to be different dynamics as far as what that experience looks like. And those that are in college, there are a lot more, I think, as far as where they want to go in their career. Um, I think at the high school level, I mean, there's that fork where once they figure out they're not going to college, you go this way, and I don't know if there's a good ecosystem for that filter yet, but I would think that's something we may want to figure out. And then also from a prioritization standpoint, what's more important right now, the high school readiness or the college readiness? College, honestly, I think it is more connecting the dots because there are a lot of college internships and opportunities in Hawaii, and a good chunk that are paid as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll make the statement broad enough to kind of cover a lot of the things we talked about, but then narrow enough that we can get something done in 12 months. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, thank you everyone for participating today.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye now.
See y'all soon.